Chief Agu's mansion was the kind of house that made everyone stop and stare. 4 stories tall, with shiny white walls and huge glass windows. It looked like something straight out of a Lagos magazine. The villagers couldn't help but gossip.
Money good oh,
they would mutter, shaking their heads. But behind their words of admiration were whispers. That land is not ordinary. So many workers died when they were building it. Chief Agu, now a rich man, didn't care about the talk. To show off his wealth, he threw a big housewarming party. Cars parked in the compound. Agbada-wearing men laughed loudly, and women in expensive lace wrappers danced to the booming music. Madam Nkechi, Chief Agu's wife, moved from guest to guest, smiling and serving drinks. But something was off. What could be off? Guests were leaving early. They ate, they drank, but before anyone could say, "Let's take pictures," they were murmuring excuses and slipping away.
Darling, why is everyone leaving so soon?
Madam Nkechi asked her husband, frowning. "They are jealous," Chief Agu replied, sipping his whiskey. Village people hate to see someone succeed. Later that night, when the house was quiet, a young cleaner named Ayo stayed behind to finish sweeping the sitting room. As he worked, he heard a dull thud, then another. He froze. "Who dey there?" he called, his voice shaking. No reply. Ayo traced the sound to a large painting on the wall. Curiosity got the better of him, and he tilted the frame. To his surprise, it revealed a small hidden door. "Now which kind wahala be this?" Ayo whispered. Against his better judgment, he opened the door. A cold wind rushed out, and before he could scream, something grabbed him and pulled him into the darkness. His broom fell to the ground. By morning, Ayo was gone. "So he left without notice," Chief Agu said casually over breakfast. "Ungrateful boy." But Madam Nkechi wasn't convinced. "His broom is still here," she muttered, her eyes fixed on the hallway. The hidden door, slightly ajar, seemed to whisper a silent warning to anyone who dared to come closer. By morning, Chief Agu's mansion wasn't just a house anymore. It was the hot topic across the entire village. Everywhere you turned, people were talking. In front of Mama Ifoma's market stall, traders abandoned their yam and plantain baskets to gossip. "Agu has sold his soul," Mama Ifoma declared, smacking her thigh for emphasis. "Money no dey come overnight like this." "I heard the man is cursed," added Papa Chinedu, chewing lazily on a stick. "His wealth no clean at all. Something is behind it." Even Madam Nkechi couldn't escape the rumors. While buying fresh tomatoes in the market, she overheard Mama Ifroma's loud voice. "See that woman? Her husband don't join blood money. Look at her face. She herself no." Nkechi's ears burned. She dropped the tomatoes and stormed home. She burst into the mansion, finding Chief Agu calmly sitting in the study, flipping through papers like nothing was wrong. "Agu, I am hearing terrible things," Nkechi blurted, hands on her hips. Chief Agu barely glanced up. "Woman, what is it now?" "They're saying you built this house on cursed land. That's you." "Enough!" Chief Agu slammed the table, his face hard. "I told you to focus on enjoying this good life. What do villagers know? Leave their nonsense talk alone." Nkechi swallowed her words. That night, long after the house had gone quiet, she woke to the sound of footsteps. She got up and tiptoed down the hall. There, near the basement, stood their son, Tobe. He stretched one small hand towards the door, his back to her. "Tobe," Nkechi whispered, rushing forward. "What are you doing here?" Tobe turned slowly. His eyes looked strange, unfocused. "Mama, they are calling me," he murmured in a soft, chilling voice. Nkechi's heart raced. She grabbed him and carried him back to bed, whispering prayers all the way. By morning, Tobe was burning with fever. His small body felt limp, his gaze fixed blankly on the ceiling. "Doctor!" Nkechi shouted. "This boy is not okay." But Chief Agu had already left the house, avoiding the chaos. When the house grew quiet, she crept to the basement door. It was still slightly open, as if waiting for her. She pushed it wider and descended the stairs slowly. Her heart pounded in her chest. The air felt cold, thick with something evil. At the center of the basement, a shrine glowed faintly. Bones and charms surrounded it. with streaks of dried blood on the walls. Madam Nkechi froze. Her throat tightened as fear gripped her. Suddenly she screamed. The sound was so loud, it made the entire mansion seem to tremble. By next morning, Madam Nkechi wasn't smiling or pretending anymore. She stormed into the living room, her face set like someone ready for war. Chief Agu, sitting lazily on the leather couch with a cup of coffee, barely glanced at her. "Agu," Nkechi said, her voice firm, hands on her hips. "What exactly did you do?" Chief Agu sighed, rubbing his temples like she was disturbing his peace. "Nkechi, please, not this morning. This morning, afternoon and night." "Agu," Nkechi shot back. "You will tell me the truth today, or I will shout so loud the spirits themselves will answer me." Chief Agu froze, his calm demeanor cracking for the first time. He sat up, placing the coffee down slowly. His eyes met hers, and she could see something there she hadn't noticed before. "Fear. Fine," he said quietly. "You want to know the truth? The land wasn't empty." Nkechi frowned. "What do you mean it wasn't empty?" "It was a burial ground," he replied flatly, "for outcasts, people abandoned by their families. My business partner said wealth required sacrifices." "Jesus!" Nkechi gasped, staggering back like she had been slapped. "Human lives, Agu! You used human lives for this house!" Chief Agu didn't respond immediately. His silence spoke louder than words. "And Tobe?" Nkechi's voice broke as tears welled up in her eyes. "What did you promise them about my son?" Chief Agu avoided her gaze, his lips tightening. That night, Nkechi lay awake, her thoughts racing. Every little creak in the house made her skin crawl. Around midnight, she heard it, a faint tapping sound. She bolted upright in bed, and her heart pounding. "Tobe," she called out softly, rushing to his room. The sight froze her blood. Tobe was levitating above his bed, his small body stiff, his head tilted unnaturally backward. "Tobe!" Nkechi screamed, rushing forward. And then he spoke, but it wasn't Tobe's voice. It was deep, gravely ancient. It sounded like it came from the bottom of the earth.
They're waiting for you, Agu.
The walls seemed to tremble as Nkechi's scream tore through the mansion. Chief Agu burst into the room, his face pale with terror. He grabbed Tobe, pulling him close as he muttered desperate prayers. "Forgive me," Agu whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Please forgive me." Tobe's body suddenly dropped back onto the bed, limp but unharmed. His eyes remained wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. The spirits had revealed themselves. They weren't just whispers anymore. They were here, and they had come to collect. By the next morning, Tobe was barely breathing. His small body lay limp on the bed, and Madam Nkechi's heart was racing. She stormed into Chief Agu's study, her face full of fear and anger. "Agu, we need to leave this house," she yelled, slamming her hand on the desk. Chief Agu didn't even look up from the book in his hand. "Running won't help," he said flatly. "Why not? Is something chaining us here?" Nkechi fired back, her voice shaking. "They will follow us," Chief Agu muttered under his breath. "Who are they?" Nkechi demanded. Her voice cracked with frustration, but Agu stayed silent. The silence was louder than any answer, and it made Nkechi's leg feel like jelly. That night, strange things began again. It started softly, a low rumbling sound, like distant thunder under the floor. Nkechi stood up in bed, her pulse quickening. Then faint whispers floated into the room. "Agu, you promised us. Come to us."